fame.
Definitely. It begs the question, does the music industry do enough to support its artists?
Yeah, or are these struggles just part of the deal when you're in the spotlight?
And you know what else I find myself wondering about now? What about all the other talented artists out there who never even get a chance to make it big? What are their stories?
Hmm, that's a really good point. We often focus on the ones who reach the top, but there are so many untold stories out there.
And what about the fans? Do we have a responsibility to support artists in a way that's healthy and sustainable?
Man, so many things to ponder. All right, well, we've thrown a lot at you today, but seriously, check out the DeBarge documentary. It's worth the watch.
Definitely. And when you're done, let us know what you think. What resonated with you the most? This is a conversation that needs to happen.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay, you guys, it's Much Grace stepping in. We're going to continue on with the conversation about the documentary, so stay tuned for more.
And the documentary, fast forward to today, things aren't so glamorous anymore, huh?
Yeah, not exactly a fairy tale ending. The documentary shows the DeBarge family dealing with some serious stuff. Financial struggles, health problems, some of them are even living in RVs. It's a far cry from the MTV days.
Wow, that's heavy stuff. It makes you think about the price of fame, you know? But there's another layer to all this. The review mentions some serious tension within the family about the documentary itself.
Right, a lot of internal conflict, especially with El DeBarge. He was the front man, the face of the band, and he's totally against this whole documentary thing. There's even this scene where he slaps the camera away, worried about how it's going to affect their legacy.
I get that. If you've poured your heart and soul into something and things haven't been easy, wouldn't you want to protect how people remember you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it also makes you think, can you really control your story?
Yeah.
Especially these days. Trying to hide the truth usually backfires. Maybe this documentary, even with all the tough stuff, could have been a chance for El to tell his side, to kind of reclaim the narrative.
Interesting. Instead of shutting things down, maybe being more open could have turned it into something positive. Show the struggles, sure, but also their strength.
Exactly. You know, this documentary is about more than just DeBarge's rise and fall. It's about how they're trying to deal with a tough present while holding on to a past that was amazing.
That's what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating. It's not just the music, but the people behind it. Their dreams, the tough times, all the complications that come with fame, especially for a family.
And that's actually a perfect place to pick things up next time. We'll dive deeper into those family dynamics, how their music impacted the world, and what their story tells us about the unpredictable ride that is the music industry.
Okay, so last time we were talking about that contrast, DeBarge's huge success and then those struggles they face later. The documentary really gets into the whole family thing, right? I mean, you can't separate the band from the family.
Yeah, for sure. This wasn't just any band. This was a family, period. All those harmonies, it was in their genes. You could just feel it when they performed.
It's like seeing where they are now, it's almost like that bond, the thing that made them so successful, is kind of being tested by all the tough stuff they're going through.
Right. And then you have to wonder about the cameras. Like, is the documentary making things more intense?
Yeah.
Or are we just seeing a really raw, unfiltered look at their lives?
It's like this added layer to an already complicated story. But going back to El DeBarge, him being so against the documentary, I get wanting to protect your image, especially if things haven't been easy. Do you see that a lot with artists, like when they've had that fall from grace?
All the time. It's such a tough thing to balance. On one side, you want to preserve your legacy, the version of yourself that everyone remembers. But then there's the reality, and it might not be so pretty. El DeBarge, he's like the poster child for that struggle.
It's almost like he wants to stop time, keep the DeBarge brand frozen at its peak, like those tough times never happened.
But you just can't control a story like that, not anymore. The truth always comes out. And it's interesting, the reviewer actually praises the documentary for being so honest, even with all the drama. They say it's some of the most genuine sorrow caught on screen in a film about musicians.
Wow, that's powerful. So even though it's a tough story, people are connecting with it, like how real it is.
Yeah, it shows you the power of just telling the truth, being vulnerable. People love those rise and fall stories, especially in music, because it taps into everyone's hopes and fears. We see ourselves in those stories, and it reminds us that even the people at the top, they're human too.
It's like we're all drawn to this question of what happens when the music stops, when the spotlight fades. And with the DeBarge, you see this family, they were united by their music, and now they're facing these challenges still together.
And their story, it brings up so many questions about fame. Is it all temporary? Is it a curse? Can you actually find happiness after the stage lights go out? The documentary seems to be exploring all that.
Okay, so we've talked about the rise, the fall, the family, that 80s nostalgia, but we can't forget at the heart of this, it's about the music. Where does the music fit into all this?
I mean, the music is the foundation of everything, right? It's what connected them to millions of people, and it still resonates today, even after all these years. Those songs, they capture a moment, a feeling, an energy that still moves people.
There's something about 80s music, it's just magical, and DeBarge, that's pure 80s sound. It's like a time machine, takes you right back.
Absolutely. That's the power of music. It can just transcend time. If you live through the 80s, it's pure nostalgia.
Hmm.
But even for younger people who weren't there, they can still hear something timeless in their music, those harmonies, the melodies.
It's like finding something amazing from the past and realizing that great music, it can last, even if the artists aren't in the spotlight anymore.
You got it. And that's something this documentary seems to be doing, bringing DeBarge back into the conversation, reminding people how important they were to music, but also showing the human side, the story behind the hits.
It's funny, we talk about music being timeless, but with DeBarge, it's almost like their music is like stuck in the 80s, you know? Can you picture Rhythm of the Night without thinking about The Last Dragon? Those breakdancing scenes?
It is interesting how music and culture get so intertwined. Some songs just become part of a specific time, and DeBarge, their sound is so 80s, you know? It's like that energy, that optimism of the mid-80s all wrapped up in their music.
Right, it's like a total sensory experience. You can almost smell the hairspray and feel those parachute pants. But what about people who weren't even born in the 80s? Do they just hear like a cool retro sound, or can they still get what DeBarge was all about?
That's what's so cool about music. It can jump between generations. Maybe younger people won't have the same nostalgia, but they can still appreciate the music itself. The harmonies, the melodies, that groove, it's just infectious.
Like finding some hidden treasure.
Right.
And realizing it still has something to say to you, even after all these years.
Exactly. And that's why this documentary is so important. It's reminding people about this band, not just their hits, but their whole story, the struggles, you know, the human side of it all. It makes you want to go back and listen to their music again, hear it in a new way.
So wrapping up our deep dive into DeBarge, we've covered a lot. Their rise to the top, their fall, the family drama, the whole fame thing, and of course the music that still connects with people. It's a story that's both happy and sad, a reminder that success can be fleeting, but talent and passion, those leave a mark.
What's fascinating about DeBarge is that they remind us that the music industry, it's not just about hits and charts, it's about people, their hopes, their heartbreaks, their victories. And with DeBarge, it's a story that's still going on, even as their music finds new listeners, inspires new artists.
Here's something to think about. If you could change how the DeBarge story ends, how would you do it? Would you give them a different ending? Smooth out the rough parts? Or would you leave it as it is, as a reminder that life, especially in music, can be unpredictable?
That's a really good question. It makes you think, do we kind of romanticize the struggles of artists? Like believing that their pain makes their art better? Or do we want a world where talent always equals happiness? Maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle, recognizing that life, both on and off the stage, it's complicated.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to think about DeBarge's legacy and what their story means to you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep the music playing.